I used to believe that love, real love, could survive anything. 8 years of marriage had taught me that no bond was stronger than the one Daniel and I shared. We weren't perfect, but we were partners. Best friends. And when things got hard, we leaned into each other. At least, I thought we did. My name is Emily. I'm 33, a schoolteacher by trade, and by all accounts, I lived a modest but fulfilling life. We didn't live in a mansion, but our home was warm. Laughter echoed off the kitchen tiles every Sunday morning as Daniel flipped pancakes and I burned coffee. Those moments were enough for me. They made me feel safe. Loved. Then there was Sophie, my younger sister by 7 years. Bright, impulsive, and hopelessly charming. She had a way of pulling people in like moths to a flame. People forgave her too easily. Especially our mother, Linda. Growing up, Sophie was the golden child. The one who could do no wrong, even when she set the neighbor's mailbox on fire by accident. I, on the other hand, was the one who colored inside the lines. Who followed the rules and earned praise only in the absence of mistakes. Still, I loved Sophie. Fiercely. Even when she made it hard. When Sophie lost her apartment last winter, Daniel didn't hesitate to invite her into our guest room. "It's just until she gets back on her feet," he said, cupping my face like he always did when asking for something he'd already decided. I smiled and nodded. Of course, she could stay. She was family. At first, it was fine. Normal, even. Sophie worked late shifts at a downtown cafe, and Daniel was putting in longer hours at the firm, angling for a promotion. Our schedules rarely overlapped. But when they did, I noticed how comfortable they were around each other. Too comfortable. I told myself I was overthinking it. They laughed at the same dumb reality shows. They liked the same offbeat podcasts. Daniel would bring her takeout on nights she worked late. "She's having a hard time," he said. "We're just trying to make her feel at home." I believed him. I had to. But slowly, things shifted. Sophie started avoiding me. At first, I thought she was just stressed. Then I noticed the small things, how she left the table when I came into the room, how her smile faded whenever I asked about her day. And then there was the crying. Soft, muffled sobs through the guest room door late at night. When I knocked and asked if she was okay, she said it was hormones. "Just PMS," she laughed, brushing a tear off her cheek. "You know how it is." I did. But it didn't feel like that. One morning, I found a crumpled brown paper bag in the bathroom trash. Inside was a pregnancy test box, empty. My breath caught. I waited for Sophie in the kitchen, the box placed neatly on the counter between us. She looked at it, then at me. Her expression didn't change. "I'm not ready to talk about it," she said quietly. I nodded, trying to hide the betrayal that crept into my chest like frost on glass. "Okay," I replied, because what else could I say? Daniel was silent when I told him. His jaw tightened, eyes flicking briefly toward the guest room. "She's probably scared," he said. "Don't push her." That night, I couldn't sleep. Something wasn't right. I knew it deep in my bones, like the dull ache of a storm before it breaks. Then came the day Daniel skipped our anniversary dinner. I'd made reservations at our favorite Italian place, where we had our first date. I waited for an hour before texting him. No response. When he finally walked through the door close to midnight, he smelled faintly of Sophie's perfume. She wasn't home. "I had to cover a late meeting," he said, loosening his tie. I didn't have time to check my phone. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the doubt had already settled in, rooting itself deep inside my chest. Days turned into weeks. Sophie stopped going to work. She claimed she was tired, sick, overwhelmed. I offered to take her to a doctor. She refused. Our mother came by more often, clucking around Sophie like a hen guarding her last egg. When I asked if she knew what was going on, she gave me that condescending smile I knew too well. "Sophie just needs time," she said. "Don't interrogate her, Emily. Not everyone handles life like you do." The words stung, but I bit my tongue. One afternoon, I returned home early from work and found the living room empty. The house was silent. Too silent. Then I heard it, Daniel's voice. Low, urgent. Followed by Sophie's. The guest room door was cracked. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I didn't even want to hear. But the words filtered through anyway, each one a nail in the coffin of my carefully built life. "I can't keep doing this," Daniel whispered. "She's not stupid, Sophie. She's starting to notice." "We should have told her," Sophie replied, her voice trembling. "I can't hide it much longer." I stepped back before I could hear more. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. I fled the house, clutching my coat like armor, the world spinning around me. That night, I didn't say a word. I lay beside Daniel, his arm draped over me like always, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Everything felt like a lie. Still, I wasn't ready to confront them. Not yet. I needed proof. Something concrete. The truth had started to rise, bitter and undeniable, but I wasn't going to let it destroy me without a fight. The truth doesn't always announce itself with a bang. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, like a whisper in a sealed room. That's how it came to me. Not with a confession, not with a breakdown, but through a folded slip of paper tucked inside my husband's jacket pocket. Daniel was in the shower when I found it. I wasn't snooping, not at first. I was looking for his dry cleaning receipt. But instead, I found a folded appointment reminder from a women's health clinic, addressed to Sophie Taylor. First trimester checkup. Monday, 3 p.m. My breath hitched. There was no mention of a father. No hints scribbled in the margins. Just her name, the date, and the confirmation of what I already feared. Sophie was pregnant, and had been for at least 2 months. When Daniel emerged, towel slung casually around his waist, I held the paper out like a weapon. "Want to explain this?" His eyes landed on the form, and for a brief second, I saw it. Panic, sharp and immediate. Then he blinked it away, replacing it with practiced calm. "She asked me to go with her," he said, voice low. "She didn't want to be alone." My stomach twisted. "Why you? Why not Mom? Or me?" He paused. "She didn't want you to worry." I laughed. A bitter, humorless sound. Too late. He tried to touch my arm, but I recoiled. "Emily, I was trying to help. That's all." I didn't believe him. Not anymore. That night, I waited until Sophie returned home. Her face pale, her posture hunched like someone carrying more than just physical weight. I didn't ease into the conversation. I couldn't. "You're pregnant," I said. Her lips parted, but no words came. "I found the clinic slip," I continued. "Don't lie to me, Sophie. Please." Tears welled in her eyes, but I saw no guilt. Just fear. Maybe shame. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. "Who's the father?" I asked, though I already knew. She hesitated, too long. Then finally, it was a mistake. My knees went weak. I sank onto the edge of the couch. "Tell me it's not Daniel." Silence. That silence shattered something inside me. It confirmed what her words hadn't. What my instincts had screamed for weeks. I felt hollow. "How could you?" My voice cracked. "You're my sister." Sophie crumpled to the floor, sobbing. "It wasn't supposed to happen. We were both drunk. You were out of town. One night, that's all it was. One night, one choice. One betrayal that undid everything I believed in." "He said he loved you," she said through tears. "But that night, he said he felt invisible, that you didn't see him anymore." I stared at her like I didn't know her. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'd been clinging to a version of Sophie that only existed in childhood memories and wishful thinking. "And what about you?" I asked. "What did you feel that night?" She looked away. The conversation ended there, not because everything was said, but because nothing else could be. I left her on the floor and walked out into the night, coatless, the cold air biting through my skin. I drove to my mother's house, tears blurring my vision. I didn't know what I expected. Comfort, maybe. Clarity. A lifeline. But when Linda opened the door and saw my face, she didn't look surprised. She looked tired, like someone who had already rehearsed this moment. "You know," I said. It wasn't a question. Her eyes flickered. She stepped aside to let me in. "I tried to talk her out of it," she began. already defending what I hadn't asked. How long? I interrupted. How long have you known? Since the beginning, she admitted. She told me right after she took the test. My heart constricted. And you didn't think I deserved to know? She sighed, rubbing her temples. Emily, what would that have solved? You're so strict, so unforgiving. I didn't want to see you destroy everything over a single mistake. I laughed again, louder this time. A single mistake? My husband slept with my sister. She's having his child. That's not a spilled glass of wine at dinner, Mom. She's your sister, she said sharply. She's young, confused, she didn't plan this. And Daniel? What's his excuse? She looked at me then, really looked at me. I never thought he was right for you. The words knocked the air from my lungs. But you welcomed him in. You called him family. Because you loved him, she said flatly. And because Sophie needed stability. You always had your life together. I thought maybe he could give her that too. I rose from the chair, trembling with disbelief. You protected them, I said quietly. You chose them over me. Linda didn't respond. She didn't have to. I left her house without another word, the door clicking shut behind me like the final note in a requiem. Back home, Daniel was waiting. He looked like a man preparing for battle, or perhaps surrender. Emily, he said, standing as I entered. I want to explain. Don't, I said, lifting a hand. I already talked to Sophie. And Mom. He sat down, defeated. I didn't plan to hurt you, he said. I don't even know how it happened. I felt disconnected, like you were somewhere far away. And Sophie, she was there. She listened. I stared at him, struggling to see the man I married. I was here, Daniel. Every day. I showed up. You just stopped noticing. He lowered his gaze. I need time, I said. Away from you. Away from all of this. His face tightened. So that's it. For now. I packed a bag that night and left the house we built together. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't breathe in that space any longer, not with his lies soaking into the walls. As I pulled away from the driveway, my phone buzzed. A message from Jasmine, my best friend since college. Are you okay? You don't sound like yourself. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen, the words blurring. No. I wasn't okay. But for the first time, I was wide awake. Grief is strange. It doesn't always arrive with tears or screams. Sometimes it just sits with you in silence, at the bottom of your coffee cup, in the hollow space between two heartbeats. 3 days after I left, I checked into a small, nondescript hotel on the outskirts of town. Jasmine offered her couch, of course, but I needed space that didn't carry anyone's memories. The walls here were blank, sterile, safe. Each morning, I woke to the sound of my own breath. No coffee brewing, no laughter, no Sophie's perfume clinging to the hallways. I told myself I missed the routine, not the people in it. But I did miss them. Or maybe just the versions of them I thought were real. Jasmine came over the next evening with groceries, comfort food, and her signature refusal to let me wallow in darkness. She'd always been the no-nonsense kind, sharp, loyal, and deeply intuitive. You look like someone dragged you through last week and forgot to set you down, she said, handing me a steaming takeout container. I managed a weak smile. Thanks. I feel like it too. She sat across from me, her gaze level. You're not going back, right? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because the silence still felt safer than commitment. He cheated, Em. With your sister. That's not something you just talk through. I know. She reached for my hand. Then, why does it look like you're still trying to carry the weight for both of them? Because I was. Because even in betrayal, I couldn't let go of the version of myself that tried to fix things. That stayed. That made excuses. I just keep asking why, I whispered. Why me? Why her? Jasmine's voice softened. Because you were the one who kept everything running. And that made you invisible to people who only notice when something breaks. That hit deep. I didn't cry. Not then. But the weight of her words settled on my chest like a stone. For years, I'd prided myself on being dependable.
Strong.
The glue. And maybe that's what did it. Maybe I held things together so tightly that no one bothered to check if I was cracking underneath. Later that night, I stared at the blank ceiling of my hotel room, replaying everything over again. Daniel's voice, Sophie's trembling hands, my mother's hollow reasoning. It would have been easier to hate them. But hate, I learned, requires more energy than grief. And right now, I had nothing left to give. The next day, I returned to the house, not to move back in, but to collect the rest of my things. Daniel was waiting, as if he'd anticipated my arrival. "Emily," he said, stepping onto the porch. "I'm not here to talk," I replied, brushing past him.
He followed anyway.
"You haven't answered my calls." "Because there's nothing left to say." He looked tired, hollow, like a man who realized too late that some losses are permanent. "I made a mistake," he said. "The worst kind. But it wasn't love, Emily. What happened with Sophie, it wasn't love. And what we had?" I turned to face him. Was that love? His lips parted, but no words came. "That's what I thought." Inside, the house looked the same. My favorite mug still sat in the dish rack. A half-finished book lay on the coffee table. It was like time had stopped without me. Or maybe it kept going and simply erased my presence. I gathered my things quickly, avoiding the guest room entirely. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to imagine the life that had bloomed in the shadows of my trust. On my way out, Daniel spoke again, this time quieter. "She's keeping the baby." I paused at the doorway. "She's going to raise it on her own," he continued. I offered support, but she doesn't want anything from me. I nodded once, the ache behind my ribs dull but steady. "Good." He stepped closer. "I never stopped loving you, Emily." I turned, locking eyes with him one last time. "You should have thought of that before loving someone else." And with that, I left. 2 weeks passed. I moved in with Jasmine temporarily, while searching for a small apartment closer to the school. I threw myself into work, grading papers, organizing lesson plans, volunteering for extra duties. It was easier to disappear into structure than sit with the silence. Sophie didn't call. Neither did my mother. Part of me resented their distance. Another part welcomed it. I needed to rebuild without their noise. Then one Sunday morning, I received a letter, folded neatly, handwritten in Sophie's unmistakable script. No return address.
Just my name.
I hesitated, then opened it. "Emily, I don't expect forgiveness.
I don't even deserve your time. But I wanted you to hear this from me.
I've decided to move. A friend offered me a place out of state. I'm leaving next month. The baby is real, and yes, it's Daniel's. But what happened, it wasn't about love. It was weakness.
Mine. His.
I let jealousy eat away at me. I saw what you had and hated myself for not having it too. I wanted something that felt like security, and I took it in the worst way possible. You didn't deserve that. You were the only one who ever truly looked out for me. And I broke that. I don't expect you to ever speak to me again. But I want you to know, I'm not hiding from what I did. Take care of yourself. I hope one day you find someone who sees you fully. You deserve that. Love. Sophie." I folded the letter and set it on the counter. No tears came. Just a quiet, almost painful understanding. She was leaving. And she wasn't asking for redemption. Just closure. Maybe that was all I needed too. Spring arrived with shy warmth and new blooms. I signed the lease on a small apartment overlooking the park. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Entirely mine. On my first night there, I stood on the balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city hum below. My phone buzzed, a message from Jasmine. "Proud of you. You're doing it, even if it hurts." I smiled. Healing, I learned, doesn't come in grand gestures. It comes quietly, like sunlight on skin after a long, cold winter. It doesn't erase the scars, but it reminds you that you're still here, still breathing. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't broken. I was beginning.